40 lives at risk. The deaf girl who trusted bikers when no one else did. The Silent Guardian, complete corrected version, part 1. Blood dripped from Sloane Callahan's torn feet onto the scorching asphalt. She couldn't hear the semi-truck screaming toward her at 60 miles per hour. Couldn't hear her own ragged breathing tearing through her chest. Couldn't hear the distant sirens that would arrive too late to save 40 men from execution. Sloane was 14 years old, deaf since birth, and she was running out of time. Her legs gave out 30 feet from the bar entrance. The world tilted sideways. Concrete rushed up to meet her face. She hit the doors with both palms and crashed through into darkness and diesel fumes and the smell of old leather. 40 pairs of eyes turned toward her. She collapsed at a giant's boots and shoved a blood-smeared notepad into his hands. 5 words that would summon 500 warriors. 5 words that would change everything. 5 armed men outside. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Because 3 hours ago, Sloane Callahan was invisible, and invisible had kept her alive for 14 years. The Arizona sun hammered down on Ironwood like God's own fist. Heat shimmered off the cracked pavement in waves that made the trailer park look like it was melting. Sloane walked home from Ironwood High with her backpack hanging from one shoulder and her eyes locked on the sidewalk 3 feet ahead. Stay small, stay quiet, stay invisible. She'd learned that lesson the hard way. 14 years of it, to be exact. 14 years of teachers who smiled and nodded and forgot her name by the next class. 14 years of classmates who looked through her like she was made of glass. 14 years of being the deaf girl nobody wanted to deal with. Different was dangerous. Different got you hurt. So Sloane had learned to fold herself into corners and disappear. The main road home went past Casey's Diner and the gas station and the strip mall where the popular kids hung out after school. That route was 2 miles of exposure, 2 miles of potential humiliation, 2 miles of Kieran Murphy and his friends looking for someone to torment. So Sloane took the back way. The alley behind the thrift stores was longer, hotter, and smelled like garbage baking in the sun. But it was empty, and empty was safe. She could walk here without watching her back every 3 seconds, could let her guard down just a little bit. Not today. Sloane stopped at the mouth of the alley and felt something cold slide down her spine. The hair on her arms stood up. Her breath caught in her throat. She couldn't hear anything wrong. She never could, but she could feel it in her bones. Something was off. 3 dumpsters sat along the back wall of Morrison's thrift store. Sloane pressed herself against the brick and peered around the corner. At first she saw nothing. Just heat waves and scattered trash and a black SUV parked where no vehicle should be. Then she saw them. 5 men, all wearing dark clothes despite the 110-degree heat, all moving with the kind of purpose that made Sloane's stomach drop. The tallest one opened the SUV's rear hatch. The other 4 gathered around. Sloane should have run, should have turned around and taken the long way home, should have done what 14 years of invisibility had taught her to do. But she didn't. She dropped into a crouch behind the nearest dumpster and watched. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Sweat soaked through her shirt. The metal dumpster radiated heat like a furnace, but she couldn't look away. The tall man reached into the SUV and pulled out something long and black. A rifle, then another, then another. By the time he finished and all 5 men were armed, Sloane's hand moved to her pocket, found her notepad, found the pencil she always carried. Her fingers shook so badly she almost dropped them both. She pressed the notepad against her knee and waited. The tall man checked his weapon with practiced efficiency. His mouth moved. Sloane focused on his lips with the intensity of someone reading the last page of a mystery novel. 14 years of lip reading had made her good at this. Very good. 40 of them, the man said, all packed in that bar. Another man grinned. His mouth formed words that made Sloane's blood turn to ice. We hit fast. We hit hard. Nobody walks out. A third man laughed silently. Hell's Angels won't know what's coming. The notepad slipped from Sloane's fingers. She caught it before it hit the ground, pressed it against her chest, forced herself to keep breathing. She knew that bar, the Devil's Crossroad. Every Thursday afternoon, the Iron Brotherhood chapter met there. She'd seen them her whole life. Leather vests with death's head patches, beards and tattoos, and motorcycles that shook the ground when they rode past. Faces that scared tourists and made children stare. But Sloan had also seen them fix Mrs. Patterson's roof after last year's monsoon, seen them buy school supplies for kids whose parents couldn't afford pencils. Last Christmas, they delivered toys to sick children at the hospital. Her mother worked the night shift there. She'd told Sloan about it, about these terrifying men with their gentle hands and quiet generosity. 40 men, 40 fathers and brothers and sons, 40 lives about to be snuffed out by 5 strangers with rifles and nothing to lose. Sloan pressed her back against the dumpster and tried to think. The smart thing to do was run home, lock the door, pretend she'd never seen anything. That's what survivors did. That's what invisible girls did. But 40 people would die. Her mother's voice echoed in her head. Words signed into her palm when she was 6 years old and crying because the other kids wouldn't play with her. You are not less, Sloan. You are different. Different is power. Sloan looked at the armed men one more time, calculated the distance. 2 miles to the bar, maybe less if she cut through the industrial park. The sun was a hammer. The heat was a wall. Her sneakers were worn thin. She had no water, no phone, nothing but a notepad and a pencil and the knowledge that 40 men were about to die if she didn't move. She ran. The first quarter mile wasn't so bad. Adrenaline carried her forward. Fear pushed her faster than she'd ever moved in her life. Her backpack bounced against her spine. Her sneakers slapped concrete in a rhythm she couldn't hear but could feel in her bones. Then her lungs started to scream. Half a mile. The industrial park stretched out around her like a concrete desert. Warehouses with blank walls, empty parking lots, no shade, no water, no help. The sun pressed down on her skull like a hand trying to crush her into the pavement. Sloane's vision started to blur. She blinked away sweat, pushed harder. Her mother always said she was stubborn, said it like it was a bad thing. Right now, it was the only thing keeping her upright. 3/4 of a mile. A delivery truck pulled out of a side street without looking. Sloan cut across its path. The driver's face twisted in rage. His mouth formed words she was glad she couldn't hear. The truck's horn blasted. She felt the vibration in her chest cavity, felt the wind as it passed inches behind her. She didn't slow down. 1 mile. Her foot caught a crack in the sidewalk. The world tilted. She went down hard with her palms out and her knees hitting concrete like hammers. Pain exploded up her legs. Blood welled from her scraped palms. Her notepad flew from her grip. No, 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 no. Sloan scrambled forward on hands and knees, grabbed the notepad. The pages were smeared with blood and sweat. Some of the writing had blurred, but the message was still readable. Barely. She forced herself to stand. Her legs shook, her palms burned. Every step sent fresh pain shooting up her shins. She didn't care. Couldn't care. There was no time for pain. Behind her, maybe a mile back, one of the armed men had looked up when she ran. Had he seen her? Did he know it didn't matter? Nothing mattered except reaching that bar before the shooting started. Keep moving, keep moving, keep moving. 1.25 miles. Her vision tunneled. The edges of the world turned gray. She couldn't feel her feet anymore. Couldn't feel anything except the pounding of blood in her skull and the desperate need to keep putting one foot in front of the other. A construction zone blocked the sidewalk. Orange cones, caution tape, workers in hard hats waving their arms and shouting. Sloan didn't stop. She ducked under the tape, leaped over a pile of tools. A worker grabbed at her shoulder. His hand caught empty air as she twisted away. 1.5 miles. A pit bull lunged from someone's yard. The chain snapped tight. The dog's jaws worked in what must have been furious barking. Sloan couldn't hear it. She only saw the teeth and the fury, and the owner yanking the dog back while screaming at her. She kept running. 1.75 miles. Her legs weren't working right anymore. Each step was a conscious decision. Lift the foot. Push forward. Land. Repeat. Her body was shutting down. Her brain was trying to protect her by making her stop, by making her lie down and rest. She couldn't stop. Wouldn't stop. The Devil's Crossroads sat at the end of a long street line with auto repair shops and bail bondsman offices. Sloan could see it now. See the motorcycles parked in neat rows outside. See the neon sign that wasn't lit during the day. See the door that led to 40 men who had no idea death was coming. 2 miles. The bar entrance loomed ahead, 8 concrete steps leading up to double doors with blacked-out windows. Sloane hit the steps at full speed. Her legs finally gave out. She collapsed forward. Her knees struck concrete. Her palms hit the doors. The impact sent fresh pain shooting up her arms. The doors burst inward. Sloane fell through into darkness and cool air and sudden silence. Her knees hit the floor. She looked up. 40 faces stared back at her. The bar was full, more than full, men everywhere, leather vests with patches and colors, beards and tattoos and bottles of beer frozen halfway to lips. The laughter had stopped. The conversations had died. Every single person in the room was staring at this wild-eyed teenage girl covered in blood and sweat and dust. For 2 heartbeats, nobody moved. Then a man at the center of the room stood up. He was massive, 6'6" easily, shoulders like a truck, beard that hung down to his chest in a thick braid. His vest said VP under the death's head patch. His eyes were the color of slate and just as hard. Flint Iron Hand O'Rourke. Everyone in Ironwood knew that name. They said he'd ridden through a tornado once to deliver medicine to a stranded family. Said he'd broken a man's jaw for hitting a woman outside a gas station. Said his hands had done terrible things and beautiful things in equal measure. Those hands were up now, palms open, moving slowly like he was approaching a wounded animal. He crossed the floor towards Sloane with measured steps, knelt down in front of her, his eyes locked on hers. His mouth moved slowly, deliberately, giving her time to read his lips. "You're safe now. What happened?" Sloane's fingers fumbled with her notepad. The pages were soaked with sweat and spotted with blood. Her handwriting looked like a child's, but it was readable. Barely. She ripped out the page and shoved it against Flint's chest. He caught it, read it. His face changed. The warmth disappeared like someone flipping a switch. Something cold and hard took over. A warrior's face. A killer's face. He looked back at Sloane. His lips moved carefully. "How many guns?" Sloane held up 5 fingers. Flint's jaw locked. He turned to the room and barked something she couldn't hear. The bar exploded into controlled chaos. Chairs flew back. Boots hit the floor. Men who'd been laughing 3 seconds ago transformed into something else entirely. Focused. Sharp. Dangerous. No panic. No screaming. Just 40 men who'd survived enough bad days to know exactly what to do when the next one arrived. 2 angels moved to the windows. 3 covered the exits. Others pulled out phones, made calls, exchanged looks that carried whole conversations. Someone grabbed a shotgun from behind the bar. Someone else locked the front door. Sloane pressed herself against the wall. Her heart slammed against her ribs so hard she thought it might break through. Her legs were trembling. Her vision was still gray around the edges. She'd made it. She'd actually made it. Now she just had to hope it wasn't too late. Flint turned back to her. His hands moved. Sign language. Perfect fluid sign language. "You safe. Stay here. We handle." Sloane froze. This man, this giant, terrifying legend, knew how to sign. Her face must have shown her shock because Flint almost smiled. Almost. "My sister," he mouthed, tapping his ear. "Deaf. Learned when I was 8. Before Sloane could respond, he pointed at the bar counter. "Behind there. Get low. Don't move until I come get you." Sloane nodded, scrambled behind the counter on hands and knees, pressed her back against the wood, pulled her knees to her chest, tried to stop shaking. Through a gap between bottles of whiskey and vodka, she could see the angels preparing for war. A younger man dropped into a crouch next to Flint. Patchy beard, quick eyes. Vest said Talon under a falcon patch. His mouth moved fast. Sloane caught fragments through the gap. Black SUV, circling the lot, California plates, 5 guys, rifles, at least 3 visible. Flint nodded once. "Call the sheriff." Talon already had his phone out. "You want me to tell them we didn't start this? Tell them we're not finishing it unless they make us. Let the law handle it if they can." Talon dialed. His lips moved too fast for Sloane to follow. She hugged her knees tighter. Her hands were still shaking. She'd faced 5 armed men with more courage than she felt right now. A hand touched her shoulder. Sloane spun so fast she almost screamed. An older man knelt beside her. Gray beard, face like cracked leather, eyes that had seen things most people couldn't imagine. His vest said ash under a skull patch that looked like it had been burned into the leather. He didn't speak. His hands moved instead. Perfect fluid sign language, just like Flint's. You are brave. You did right. Breathe. Sloane's eyes burned. She'd spent 14 years begging people to learn. Teachers gave up after a week. Classmates never tried. The school counselor smiled and nodded and forgot her the second she left the room. But this stranger, this biker with scars on his knuckles and pain carved into his face, signed like he'd been doing it his whole life. Her hands moved shakily. How Ash's expression flickered. Old grief surfaced like a body floating up from deep water. My daughter, deaf. She would have been your age. Would have been. Sloane understood. She reached out and touched his arm. Ash covered her hand with his own, squeezed once. Then he positioned himself between her and the door, a human shield made of leather and scar tissue and grief transformed into purpose. For the first time in 14 years, Sloane wasn't alone. We got a problem. Talon's voice cut through the room. Sloane watched his lips through the bottles. Sniper, roof across the street, using the water tower for cover. Flint didn't flinch. Can we see him? No, angle's wrong. Then nobody moves, nobody gives him a target. Flint faced the room. Sloane couldn't hear his words, but she saw every man in the bar go still. She saw the shift, the way 40 warriors became 40 statues. A thick-necked man stepped forward. His vest said butcher under a cleaver patch. His mouth formed words that looked like protest, like argument. Flint's response made the man's eyes drop, made him step back, made him nod. Through the window, red and blue lights began to pulse. Sloane felt the sirens first, a vibration that grew stronger until the whole floor hummed beneath her. Then the lights cut through the dusty windows, red and blue flashing against walls and bottles, and then 40 faces that had been certain they were going to die today. Relief rippled through the room like a wave. Sloane saw shoulders drop, saw tight jaws relax, saw men exchange fierce grins that said, we made it, we actually made it. 5 minutes passed, maybe 10. Sloane had lost track of time. Her body was shutting down now that the adrenaline was fading. Her hands throbbed. Her knees screamed. Her head pounded like someone was hitting it with a hammer. The door opened slowly. A woman in a tan uniform stepped through. Badge on her chest, gun on her hip, gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. She scanned the room with the practiced eye of someone who'd walked into plenty of bad situations and walked back out of most of them. Sheriff Beth O'Brien. Sloane recognized her from the news, from the posters at school about drug awareness, from that one time she'd come to give a talk about safety that nobody listened to. The sheriff's eyes swept across 40 angels frozen in defensive positions. Something like respect crossed her face. Clear, she said loud enough for even Sloane to catch the movement of her lips. Got all 5. Nobody hurt. The room exhaled, 40 men breathing at once. The sound must have been deafening. Flint stepped forward. His lips formed a question. The sniper. My deputy tased him before he could squeeze off a shot. The sheriff's eyes narrowed. You got lucky, real lucky. These weren't local boys playing tough. These were professionals. Yeah, Flint's voice was flat. We figured. O'Brien's gaze swept the room again, landed on Sloane's hiding spot behind the counter. That her, the one who warned you, Sloane didn't want to come out. 14 years of practice told her to stay hidden, stay small, stay invisible, stay safe. But Ash touched her shoulder. His hands moved gently. You are safe, you are hero, come. She stood on shaking legs. 40 angels stepped aside. A path opened from the bar to where the sheriff stood. Every eye in the room locked onto Sloane. Not with pity, not with confusion, not with that look she'd gotten her whole life, the one that said, poor things so unfortunate. With respect. Sheriff O'Brien walked toward her slowly, spoke clearly so Sloane could read her lips. You ran all that way by yourself to warn them. Sloane nodded. Honey, those men were Viper Clan, hit squad out of California. They've been trying to push into this territory for months. The sheriff's voice softened in a way that made Sloane's chest tighten. Without you, I'd be calling 40 families right now to tell them their husbands and fathers weren't coming home. Sloane's knees buckled. Flint caught her, held her up. His hands were gentle despite their size, despite the scars, despite everything. She needs water, he said. Food. And someone needs to call her mother. I'll handle the mother. O'Brien pulled out her phone, bent to him. You take care of the kid. Flint looked down at Sloan, this tiny, bloody, sweat-soaked girl who had just saved everyone in the room, who had run 2 miles through killing heat because 40 strangers mattered more than her own safety. Yeah, he said quietly. We got her. O'Brien stepped outside to make the call. Sloan let Flint guide her to a booth, sat down heavily. Someone brought water. She drank it so fast she choked. Ash appeared with a first aid kit, started cleaning the blood from her palms with movements so gentle she barely felt it. Talon slid into the booth across from her, pulled out his phone, typed quickly, turned the screen toward her. You just saved 40 lives. What's your name? Sloan took the phone with shaking hands, typed back, Sloan Callahan. I'm 14. I live in the trailer park on Dixon Road. Talon read it, looked up at her. Something shifted in his eyes, something that looked like wonder mixed with heartbreak. I have a daughter, he typed. She's 12. If someone like you hadn't been walking down that alley today, she'd have lost her father. He paused, typed more. Thank you doesn't even begin to cover it, but thank you. Sloane's vision blurred. She pressed her palms against her eyes, felt her shoulders shake. 14 years of being invisible. 14 years of being less than. 14 years of wondering if anyone would even notice if she disappeared. Now 40 men knew her name, knew her face, saw her clearer than anyone ever had. Ash moved around the table, sat beside her, didn't touch, just sat there. Solid, warm, present. And when Flint finished with the sheriff and came to check on her, he didn't interrupt. Just leaned against the booth and stood guard. Sloan cried until she had nothing left, until her chest hurt and her eyes burned and her throat was raw from sobs she couldn't hear. And nobody told her to stop. Nobody told her to pull herself together. Nobody made her feel weak. They just let her feel. And somehow, that made everything better. She was wiping her face with her sleeve when the door slammed open. Every angel tensed, hands moved toward weapons. Flint stabbed forward, positioning himself between the entrance and Sloane's booth. A woman stood in the doorway, hair wild, eyes wilder, still wearing yesterday's scrubs from her shift at the hospital. She looked like she'd driven here at 90 miles an hour and left pieces of her sanity scattered along the highway. Sloan Deirdre Callahan didn't wait for anyone to move. She shoved through the crowd of leather and muscle like they were made of smoke, crossed the room in 5 strides. Sloan was moving before she knew it. They collided in the middle of the floor. Deirdre's arms crushed around her. Sloan buried her face in her mother's shoulder and breathed in the smell of disinfectant and cheap perfume and home. I'm sorry, Sloan signed when Deirdre finally pulled back. I didn't mean to scare you. Deirdre shook her head hard, signed back with fierce intensity. Don't you ever apologize for being brave, ever. Mrs. Callahan. Deirdre spun around, shoving Sloan behind her. Protective, fierce, ready to fight anyone who came near her daughter. Flint stood there, massive, intimidating, patient. What happened to my daughter? He told her. Everything. The armed men, the ambush plan, Sloane's 2-mile run, the warning, the arrests. Deirdre listened with her mouth open, her hand never leaving Sloane's arm. When Flint finished, she turned back to her daughter. You saw men with guns, she signed, and you ran toward the danger. Sloan nodded. To warn people you don't even know. Another nod. Deirdre's face crumpled. She pulled Sloan close, pressed kisses against her hair, her forehead, her cheeks. You stupid, brave, incredible girl. Her voice broke. Sloan felt the words vibrate through her mother's chest. I am so proud of you and so angry at you, and I love you so much, I can't breathe. They stood like that for a long time. Mother and daughter holding each other in a biker bar while 40 men watched in silence. While the Arizona sun hammered down outside. While somewhere in the distance, 5 arrested gunmen sat in the back of patrol cars and wondered how everything went so wrong. Sloan leaned against her mother's shoulder and felt the familiar warmth, the familiar heartbeat. For the first time all day, she let herself relax. But it wasn't over. Sheriff O'Brien came back 30 minutes later. Her face was grim. Sloan watched her pull Flint aside. Watched their lips move. Watched Flint's expression go dark. When the sheriff left, he crossed to Sloane's booth and knelt down. His hands moved carefully. Problem. The men today, not the end. More coming. Sloane's blood turned to ice. Her hands moved shakily. What do you mean? Flint spoke aloud for Deirdre's benefit. Viper Clan, gang those guys belong to. We stopped their trafficking operation 3 months ago. Saved 12 women they were moving across the border. Deirdre's hand found Sloane's shoulder, gripped tight. What does that have to do with my daughter? Nothing yet. Flint's jaw tightened. But if they find out who tipped us off, if they figure out it was a kid, he paused. They might come looking, might see it as unfinished business. The room went silent. Sloane watched her mother's face cycle through fear, then rage, then something harder, something dangerous. Over my dead body, Deirdre said. Flint nodded. Over ours, too. He stood, faced the room. Sloane couldn't hear his words, but she watched 40 heads nod, watched hands slap against leather, watched something pass between these men. A decision, a promise. When he turned back, his face had changed. No longer worried, now certain. His hands moved slowly so Sloane could follow every sign. Little sister, Iron Brotherhood, just made you a promise. You saved us. Now we protect you. Both of you. Deirdre gripped Sloane's shoulder. What exactly does that mean? Flint's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile, something fiercer. Means your daughter just got 40 big brothers. He glanced at his phone, already buzzing with messages. And by tomorrow, when word gets out, he tapped the death's head on his chest. Going to be a whole lot more than 40. Sloane didn't understand, not yet. She didn't know that phones were lighting up across 5 states, that encrypted messages were carrying her story from chapter to chapter, that men who'd never met her were clearing schedules, filling gas tanks, preparing to ride. She didn't know that by this time tomorrow, her life would be unrecognizable. All she knew was Ash beside her, patient and calm. Talon showing her dumb videos on his phone to make her smile. Flint standing guard by the door. Her mother's hand never leaving her shoulder. She was exhausted, terrified. Her legs throbbed, her palms stung. Her head pounded like a drum. But underneath all of that, something new flickered. Not hope, not yet. Something smaller, more fragile. The first spark of believing she mattered. The sheriff returned one more time before they left, pulled Flint aside again. Sloane watched them talk. Watched Flint's expression shift from concern to something cold and calculating. When the conversation ended, he gathered the angels, spoke to them in low tones. Sloane couldn't follow it all, but she caught fragments. Confirmed intelligence, 20 more operatives, already in state, looking for whoever tipped us off. Ash returned to the booth, signed to Sloane. We're moving you tonight, you and your mother, somewhere safe. Where? Sloane asked. Our compound, outside Mesa, walls, security, brothers on watch 24 hours. Deirdre leaned forward. For how long? Until the threat is neutralized. Flint appeared behind Ash. Could be days, could be weeks. But you're not going back to that trailer tonight. Sloane looked at her mother, saw the fear, saw the exhaustion, saw 14 years of struggle etched into every line of her face. They'd barely made rent last month. The electric bill was past due. Medical debt from when Sloane was diagnosed as a baby still haunted them. And now they had to abandon the only home they had. Deirdre signed to Sloane, said, What do you want to do, baby? Sloane looked around the bar at 40 men who'd been strangers 2 hours ago, who were now standing between her and death, who were offering protection without asking for anything in return. I think we should go, she signed back. Deirdre nodded, turned to Flint. Okay, we'll go, but I need to pack some things first. We'll escort you, give you 30 minutes, then we ride. They left the bar surrounded by 12 motorcycles. Sloane sat in the passenger seat of her mother's beat-up Corolla and watched engines rumble to life around them. Headlights cut through the late afternoon sun. Sun, chrome gleamed. Leather moved like a living thing. The convoy rolled through Ironwood's empty streets. People came out of houses to stare. Cars pulled over. Children pointed and waved. Sloane pressed her face against the window and watched the world react to this impossible parade. Her mother gripped the steering wheel with white knuckles. I can't believe this is happening. She caught herself. repeated the words slowly, making sure Sloane could read her lips in the dim light of the dashboard. Sloane nodded. I know. How did we get here? You did the right thing, baby. You saved lives. This is just, Deirdre's voice cracked. This is just the world catching up to what you did. The trailer looked smaller than Sloane remembered. Or maybe she'd just grown in the last 3 hours. Grown into someone who ran toward danger instead of away from it. Someone who mattered enough for 40 men to care whether she lived or died. The motorcycles formed a protective ring around the trailer. Engines died one by one. Men dismounted, stretched, looked around with assessing eyes that cataloged every exit, every threat, every potential problem. Sloane climbed out of the car and waited for judgment, for pity, for the barely hidden contempt she'd seen on so many faces when people realized where she lived. It didn't come. Flint walked up to the trailer, gave it a long look, nodded once. Good sightlines. One entry point, easy to watch. He turned to his men. Talon Ash, you take first shift. Butcher Falcon set up at the street. Anyone comes down this road, I want to know before they pass the mailbox. Men moved. Positions were taken. Within 5 minutes, Sloane's tiny trailer was surrounded by a wall of leather and steel and brotherhood. Inside, Sloane and Deirdre packed with shaking hands, clothes thrown into garbage bags, important documents stuffed into a backpack, photos from the refrigerator carefully wrapped in newspaper, the accumulated debris of 14 years of poverty and struggle and love. Sloane paused at her bedroom door, looked at the poster on the wall, her favorite band, the one she'd never heard but loved anyway because her mother described their music in vivid signs, the stack of books on her nightstand, the worn stuffed elephant she'd had since she was 3. We can come back, Deirdre sighed from behind her. This isn't forever. But it felt like forever. It felt like the end of something and the beginning of something else. Something Sloane couldn't name yet, couldn't fully understand. She grabbed the elephant, shoved it into her backpack, turned away from the room that had been her entire world for 14 years. They left as the sun began to set. The convoy was larger now. More bikes had arrived while they were inside. Sloane counted 20, then 30, lost track somewhere around 40. Flint led the procession. Ash rode directly behind the Corolla. Talon moved ahead, scouting. The rest formed a protective shell around Sloane and Deirdre's car. They rolled out of the trailer park like a military operation. Precise, coordinated, deadly serious. Sloane pressed her face against the window and watched Ironwood disappear behind them. Watched the sun paint the desert in shades of gold and red. Watched the world transform into something strange and beautiful and terrifying all at once. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. This is Talon. Flint gave me your number. How are you holding up? Sloane typed back with shaking hands. Scared, confused, still processing. That's normal. What you did today, most people couldn't do that in a lifetime. You're allowed to be overwhelmed. Another buzz. Different number. This is Ash. Just wanted you to know we've got vehicles behind us too. Nobody's following. You're safe. Then another, and another. Names she didn't recognize. Brothers from other chapters who'd already heard the story, who wanted her to know they were coming, that she wasn't alone. By the time they reached the compound 45 minutes later, Sloane had 12 messages from 12 different angels, all saying the same thing in different ways. We've got you. You're family now. Nothing's going to hurt you. The compound rose out of the desert like a fortress. High walls, security cameras, iron gates that swung open as the convoy approached. Inside, Sloane could see more motorcycles, more men, more leather and chrome and death's head patches. Flint killed his engine first. The rest followed like a choreographed dance. Silence fell over the compound. Or what would have been silence if Sloane could hear. Instead, she felt the sudden stillness, the weight of 50 pairs of eyes turning toward their car. Deirdre helped her out, held her hand tight. Together they walked toward the main building. Toward Flint, who stood waiting with his arms crossed and his face unreadable. Welcome to Iron Brotherhood Mesa, he said slowly, clearly. For however long you need it, this is home. Sloane looked around, at the compound that looked like it could survive a siege, at the men who were already positioning themselves at strategic points, at her mother who was trying very hard not to cry. Thank you, she signed. Flint nodded. Don't thank us yet. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. What? Deirdre asked. What's happening tomorrow? Flint pulled out his phone, showed them the screen. Sloane couldn't see it clearly from this angle, but she watched her mother's eyes go wide. That's, that's not possible. Oh, it's possible. Flint pocketed the phone. Word travels fast in our world. By tomorrow afternoon, you're going to have more protection than the president. He turned and walked toward the main building, called over his shoulder. Get some rest, both of you. You're going to need it. Sloane stood in the center of the compound and felt the world shift beneath her feet. 48 hours ago, she'd been invisible, a ghost in her own life, unheard, unseen, unnecessary. Now she was standing in a fortress surrounded by warriors who dropped everything to protect her. Now phones were lighting up across 5 states with her story. Now men she'd never met were riding through the night to reach her. Deirdre squeezed her hand, signed with her free hand. You okay, baby? Sloane didn't know how to answer that. She wasn't okay. She was terrified and exhausted and overwhelmed and confused. But she was also something else, something she'd never been before. She was seen. I don't know what I am, she signed back. But I think maybe that's okay. Deirdre pulled her close, kissed the top of her head. Come on, let's find somewhere to sleep. Tomorrow we figure out what comes next. They walked toward the main building together, mother and daughter, survivors, warriors in their own right, even if they didn't know it yet. Behind them, the compound came alive. Men made calls, checked weapons, prepared defenses, got ready for whatever tomorrow would bring. And somewhere out there in the darkness, phones continued to light up. Messages continued to spread. Brothers continued to ride. By sunrise, Sloane Callahan's life would be unrecognizable. By sunset, 500 angels would have answered her call. But that was tomorrow's story. Tonight she was just a 14-year-old girl who'd run 2 miles to save strangers, who'd collapsed at the feet of warriors and changed everything. Tonight, for the first time in her life, Sloane Callahan was home. Part 2. Sloane woke to her mother shaking her shoulder. The room was dark. Too dark. For a moment she couldn't remember where she was. Then it came flooding back. The run, the blood, the 40 men who'd almost died, the convoy through the desert, the compound. Deirdre's face was pale in the pre-dawn light filtering through the window. Her eyes were wide. Not with fear exactly, with something else. Something Sloane couldn't name. What's wrong? She signed, instantly alert. Her mother pointed toward the window. Sloane pushed back the curtain and her jaw dropped. The compound's main yard was filled with motorcycles. Not the 50 from last night. More. So many more that they stretched from the main building and all the way to the security gates. Chrome and leather gleaming in the first light of dawn. Men everywhere. Moving between bikes. Setting up camps. Drinking coffee from thermoses. And more were coming. Sloane felt the vibration through the floor before she saw them. Engines approaching. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds. The ground trembled like the earth itself was coming alive. Ash appeared in the doorway. His face held something Sloane had never seen there before. Pride mixed with something deeper. Something that looked almost like hope. He signed slowly. Word traveled fast. Brothers came from 3 states. More on the way. Sloane stared at the sea of motorcycles outside, at the men dismounting, stretching, looking toward the main building where she and her mother had slept. Every face turned their direction with expressions of respect and curiosity. Her hands moved shakily. How many Ash's weathered face creased into something that might have been a smile. So far, 112. By tonight, he paused, let the weight of it settle. We're expecting 500. 500. 500 Hell's Angels coming to protect one deaf girl from Arizona. Sloane sat back on the bed and tried to remember how to breathe. The morning passed in a blur that felt like drowning in slow motion. Sloane stepped outside with Deirdre and felt the world shift beneath her feet. The Arizona sun was already climbing, heat building, but she barely noticed. Her eyes moved across chrome and leather that had transformed the compound into something unrecognizable. Men everywhere, motorcycles everywhere, patches from chapters she'd never heard of. Nevada, New Mexico, Colorado, California, even one from Oregon with a mountain lion patch that looked like it had been worn for decades. They were all looking at her. Ash moved to her side immediately. His hands formed words of comfort. Don't be afraid. They came for you. To honor you. Sloane's chest tightened. I don't understand. Why would strangers drive hundreds of miles for someone they've never met? Ash's weathered face softened in a way that made him look years younger, made the pain carved into his features ease just slightly. Because you did something they understand. You protected family even when it wasn't your family yet. A massive man of proportion, easily 6'4", arms like tree trunks, beard braided with silver beads that caught the morning light. His vest read Sergeant at Arms under a New Mexico chapter patch. Road name Crusher. He stopped in front of Sloane and dropped to one knee. Sloane froze. This giant, this warrior who looked like he could break her in half without trying, was kneeling before her like she was someone important, someone who mattered. His lips moved slowly, deliberately, giving her time to read every word. Name's Crusher, drove 9 hours through the night, wanted to shake the hand of the girl who saved my brothers. He extended his hand, scarred, calloused, but held with such gentleness it made Sloane's throat tighten. She took it. His grip was firm but careful, like he was holding something precious that might break. Thank you for what you did, he said. My brother Flint, he's got 3 kids. They get to see their daddy tonight because of you. He stood, nodded once, walked back to join the others. Sloane turned to Ash. Her eyes were wide. Did that just happen? Ash smiled. The first real smile she'd seen from him. That's going to happen a lot today. Get used to it. She didn't think she ever would. Over the next hour, 17 more angels approached. Some came alone, some in pairs. Each one knelt. Each one thanked her. Each one looked at her like she'd given them something more valuable than gold. Their lives, their brothers' lives, their futures. Sloane's face was wet with tears by the time a van pulled up at the compound gates. A woman jumped out, silver-streaked hair flying, moving with the kind of authority that made men twice her size step aside without question. She pushed through the crowd like a force of nature. Catherine Mama Hawk Reynolds. Sloane recognized her from last night's video call. She reached Sloane and pulled her into a hug so fierce it knocked the breath from her lungs. There she is. Mama Hawk pulled back, hands on Sloane's shoulders, studying her face with sharp eyes that saw everything. You look exhausted. When did you last eat a real meal? Sloane blinked. She couldn't remember. Yesterday was a lifetime ago. That's what I thought. Mama Hawk turned to Deirdre. You must be Mom. I'm Catherine. Most people call me Mama Hawk. And before you ask, no, I didn't earn the name by being sweet. Deirdre actually laughed. A real laugh that sounded like relief and exhaustion mixed together. I gathered that. Good. We understand each other. Mama Hawk snapped her fingers toward the van. Boys, start unloading. Groceries go in the kitchen. Clothes go in the room. And if I see anyone tracking dirt inside, I'll break their kneecaps. 3 younger men scrambled to obey. Sloane watched in amazement as bags and boxes started flowing toward the main building. Food, clothes, toiletries, things she and her mother had been rationing for months because money was always tight and there was never enough. This is too much, Sloane signed to Ash. He shook his head, signed back firmly. This is just the beginning. Mama Hawk caught the exchange, pulled out her phone, typed rapidly, showed Sloane the screen. Nothing is too much for you. Get that through your head right now. You saved my family. This is the least we can do. Sloane's eyes burned. She nodded. Couldn't trust herself to respond with words or signs. Just nodded and let Mama Hawk pull her toward the main building where breakfast smells were already wafting through open windows. The kitchen was chaos. Good chaos. Mama Hawk moved through it like a general commanding troops. Eggs sizzling on multiple stoves. Coffee brewing strong enough to wake the dead. Fresh fruit being sliced. Bacon crackling. Toast popping. Sloane sat at a long table with Deirdre beside her. Mama Hawk filled their plates until they overflowed. Set glasses of orange juice in front of them. Stood there with arms crossed until they both started eating. Both of you, she said, speaking clearly for Sloane's benefit. You're going to need your strength today. Deirdre lowered her fork. What's happening today? Mama Hawk glanced toward the window, toward the sea of motorcycles and leather and men who kept arriving in a steady stream. Today the world finds out what your daughter did. Around 11 o'clock, the mood in the compound shifted. Sloane felt it before she understood it. That ripple of tension that transformed relaxed men into warriors in the space between heartbeats. A commotion near the main gates. Raised voices. Movement that looked coordinated but urgent. Flint strode across the compound with his phone pressed to his ear. His face was set in hard lines. Ash appeared at Sloane's side. Signed quickly. Stay here, let us handle this. But Sloane could see through the windows, could see a patroni car pulled up outside the gates, could see Deputy Garrett pushing against the wall of angels blocking his entry. His face was red, mouth moving fast in what looked like anger. Flint reached the gates, stepped through. The angels parted for him, but stayed close. Ready. Sloane couldn't hear the conversation, but she watched it unfold through body language and lip movements. This is harassment, Garrett was saying. You can't just block a public road. We're not blocking anything. Flint's voice was calm, cold as stone. Every bike is legally parked. Every man has a right to behavior. You want to check registrations? You're welcome to try. Gonna take you about 6 hours. That girl, Garrett pointed toward the main building, toward where Sloane stood watching. I need to question her again. Her story doesn't add up. Her story saved 40 lives. What part of that doesn't add up? She just happened to be in the right place at the right time to see professional hitmen setting up an ambush. That's convenient. Flint stepped closer, somehow seemed to grow larger. She was walking home from school, deputy. Same route she takes every day. The only thing convenient here is you showing up to harass a 14-year-old girl who did your job for you. Garrett's hand moved toward his holster. 50 angels shifted, not threatening, just present, just reminding the deputy that he was outnumbered 50-1, and those weren't good odds for anyone. This isn't over, Garrett said. Yeah, it is. A new voice cut through, female, sharp. Mama Hawk walked toward the gates with her phone in hand. I've got Sheriff O'Brien on the line. She wants to know why you're here when she specifically ordered you to stay away from this compound. Garrett's face went pale. I'm just doing my job. Your job is protecting people. That girl protected people. Where were you yesterday when she was running 2 miles to warn 40 men about an ambush? Mama Hawk's voice dropped to something dangerous. Where were you when she collapsed, bleeding through those bar doors? She stepped closer, somehow made the deputy look small despite being half his size. Walk away, Deputy Garrett. Walk away before Sheriff O'Brien decides to investigate exactly why you're so interested in discrediting the one witness who can put those shooters away for life. For a long moment, nobody moved. The compound held its breath. Then Garrett turned, walked back to his patrol car, slammed the door, drove away in a spray of gravel. Mama Hawk watched him go, turned to the assembled angels. Someone get eyes on that deputy. I don't trust him. Flint nodded, gestured to Talon. You heard the lady. Talon was already on his bike, engine roaring to life. He followed Garrett's patrol car at a discreet distance. 3 other bikes peeled off to join him, a tail the deputy would never shake. Sloane stepped outside. Mama Hawk saw her and shook her head. Don't let him get in your head, sweetheart. Some people can't stand it when someone else does something brave. Makes them feel small. He thinks I'm lying, Sloane signed. Ash translated for the crowd. Several angels made sounds of disgust. He thinks you're a threat, Mama Hawk corrected, because you are. To him, to his worldview, to everything he thinks he knows about power and who deserves it. She placed a hand on Sloane's shoulder. You're a 14-year-old deaf girl who saved 40 lives. That terrifies men like him. So he has to make you wrong. Has to make you suspicious. Has to diminish what you did. Sloane looked at this fierce woman who had driven hours to protect her. Why? Because if you're right, if you're a hero, then what's his excuse? He's got a badge and a gun and all the authority society gives him. And he did nothing. You've got nothing but courage. And you did everything. Mama Hawk's eyes blazed. That's why we're here, baby girl. All of us. Because we recognize real strength when we see it. The afternoon brought another convoy. Sloane heard it first through vibrations. Felt it in her bones before she saw it. 3 black SUVs rolling through the compound gates with government plates and tinted windows. Federal agents, 50 angels moved into defensive positions without being told. Hands near weapons, eyes sharp, ready. Flint stepped forward. positioned himself between the SUVs and the main building, between the unknown and the girl they'd sworn to protect. The lead vehicle stopped. Door opened. A man stepped out. Tall, sharp-featured, eyes that cataloged everything in 3 seconds. He held up credentials. Special Agent Marcus Mitchell, FBI. I need to speak with Sloane Callahan. She's 14, Flint said, voice flat. Whatever you've got to say, you say it in front of her mother and her lawyer. She doesn't have a lawyer. She does now. A woman emerged from the crowd, mid-50s, silver hair pulled back severe, power suit that looked out of place among leather and denim. Patricia Vance. I've represented Iron Brotherhood for 12 years. Miss Callahan is my client as of right now. Mitchell studied her, nodded slowly. Fair enough. Can we talk inside? They moved to a conference room off the main hall. Long table, chairs that had seen better days, maps of Arizona tacked to walls. Sloane sat between Deirdre and Patricia. Ash stood behind her. Flint leaned against the door. Mitchell sat across from them with 2 other agents flanking him. He spread documents across the table. Photos, maps, names. Things that made Sloane's stomach drop. Viper Clan isn't just a gang, Mitchell began, speaking slowly enough for Sloane to follow his lips. They're a cartel operation. Drugs, weapons, human trafficking. We've been building a case against them for 3 years. Deirdre leaned forward. What does this have to do with my daughter? Mitchell pointed to a map. Red lines showing routes through Arizona, through New Mexico, through Texas. A web of trafficking that spanned 3 states. The Angels control key territory here. He tapped to the map. Territory the Vipers need for their trafficking routes. Wiping out Iron Brotherhood would have opened a corridor from California to Texas, worth about $50 million annually. Sloane felt sick. All those women, all those children, moved through the desert like cargo, like things instead of people. Your daughter didn't just save 40 bikers, Mitchell continued. She disrupted a major trafficking operation. The Vipers are furious and scared. If word gets out that a 14-year-old deaf girl took down their hit squad, they look weak. Patricia spoke up. So they put a bounty on her head. Mitchell met her eyes. $200,000. The room went cold. Deirdre made a sound like she'd been punched, grabbed Sloane's hand and wouldn't let go. Flint's face hardened into something that looked carved from stone. Ash's hands moved, signing to Sloane. How do we stop them? Mitchell understood sign language. Sloane saw recognition flicker in his eyes. He responded with words and basic signs together. That's why I'm here. We have an opportunity. He pulled out another document. Viper leadership is gathering tomorrow. Phoenix. There's a memorial service for the women we rescued 3 months ago. Community event. Lots of people. Lots of media. Flint straightened. You want to use Sloane as bait. I want to give the Vipers what they're looking for. A target. Out in the open. Visible. Vulnerable. Mitchell's eyes moved to Sloane. But she won't actually be vulnerable. Full tactical team, coordinated with local law enforcement. Snipers on every rooftop, agents in the crowd. The moment they make a move, we take them down. Deirdre shot to her feet. Absolutely not. You are not using my daughter as bait. Mrs. Callahan. Mitchell's voice softened. She's 14. She's already been through hell. I understand your concern. But this is our best chance to end the threat permanently. To take down the entire organization in one operation. And if something goes wrong, Mitchell met her eyes. Didn't flinch. Then every agent on that team will die protecting her. I give you my word. Silence stretched across the table. Heavy, oppressive. Sloane looked at her mother's face. Saw terror there. Saw love. Saw 14 years of protecting her daughter from a world that didn't understand her. But Sloane also saw the map. Saw the trafficking routes. Saw the photos of the 12 women they'd rescued. Saw the names of the ones they hadn't saved in time. She pulled out her phone. Typed slowly. If I hide, they'll keep looking. They'll keep hunting. I can't live my life afraid. And I can't let other people die because I'm too scared to help stop this. She turned the phone toward her mother. Deirdre read it. Her face crumpled. Tears spilled down her cheeks. You're 14. You shouldn't have to make decisions like this. Sloan typed again. I know, but I already did. Yesterday when I ran toward those men. This is just the next part. She looked at Mitchell, spoke aloud. Her voice was rough, unused to forming words, but clear enough. I'll do it. Deirdre grabbed her hands, signed desperately. Sloan, please. There has to be another way. There isn't, Sloan signed back. Her hands were steady now, certain. And if I don't do this, someone else's daughter might die. Someone else's mother. I have to try. Deirdre looked at her daughter. Really looked. Saw someone she didn't quite recognize. Someone who'd grown up in the space between yesterday and today. Someone brave and reckless and impossibly strong. Okay, she whispered. Okay, but I'm going with you every step. Flint stepped forward. So are we. All of us. 500 angels will be at that memorial. Vipers want to make a move. They'll have to go through every single one of us first. Mitchell nodded. We were counting on that. The planning session lasted 3 hours. Logistics, positioning, contingency plans. Mitchell spread maps across the table, showed them the memorial plaza, the surrounding buildings, the routes in and out. Patricia took notes, asked sharp questions, challenged assumptions. Sloan absorbed what she could, watched Mitchell explain the plan, watched Flint point out potential problems, watched her mother's hands shake every time someone mentioned the word exposure. But she also noticed things, small things, details that Mitchell glossed over, patterns in the traffic flow, sight lines that didn't quite work, timing that felt off. She raised her hand. Mitchell stopped mid-sentence, looked at her. Sloan typed on her phone. The plaza has 3 main entrances. You've got agents covering 2, but this one, she pointed to the eastern entrance. It's blocked by construction. Your intel shows it's closed. But I pass there every week going to my audiologist. They finished that work 2 weeks ago. It's open. Mitchell leaned forward, studied the map, pulled out his phone, made a call, listened. His face changed. She's right. Intel was outdated. That entrance is open. He looked at Sloan with something new in his eyes. Respect mixed with surprise. Good catch. That could have been a problem. Patricia smiled. Seems like your operation just got better. They worked for another hour. Mitchell adjusted positions, added coverage to the eastern entrance. Sloan watched, listened, pointed out 2 more small details that might matter. A reflection angle that could blind snipers. A vendor that always parked in a spot that blocked sight lines. Each time Mitchell listened, adjusted, improved the plan. By the time they finished, the sun was setting. Mitchell stood, extended his hand to Sloan. Miss Callahan, thank you for agreeing to this. I know it's asking a lot. Sloan shook his hand, typed one more message. Just make sure it works. I don't want to die tomorrow. Mitchell's face was grave. Neither do I. I've got a daughter your age. If she did what you did yesterday, he paused. I'd be as terrified as your mother. But I'd also be as proud. He looked at Deirdre. Your daughter is remarkable, Mrs. Callahan. After Mitchell left, Sloan felt the weight of it crash down. The compound had grown dark. Stars were emerging. 500 motorcycles sat silent in the main yard. 500 men were preparing for tomorrow. And she was the reason. The catalyst. The bait. She slipped outside, found a quiet spot near the compound wall, pressed her back against sun-warmed concrete, and tried to remember how to breathe. Ash found her 10 minutes later. He didn't speak, didn't sign, just sat down beside her and watched the stars emerge. His presence was solid, comforting. After a while, his hands began to move. My daughter's name was Lily. Sloan turned to face him fully. She was deaf, like you, born that way. His hands moved slower now, weighted with memory. Beautiful, brave, stubborn as hell. Never let anyone tell her what she couldn't do. He paused, looked at the stars. She got sick when she was 12. Cancer, fought for 3 years, never complained, never gave up. Used to joke that being deaf was her superpower because she didn't have to listen to the doctors tell her it was hopeless. Sloane's eyes filled. I'm sorry. She used to say, Ash's hands trembled slightly. She used to say that being deaf wasn't a disability. It was just a different way of experiencing the world. That she could see things hearing people missed, could read people, understand them without words. He looked at Sloan, really looked. When I saw you burst through those bar doors yesterday, bleeding and scared, but still fighting, I saw Lily. Saw my daughter coming back to me. Saw everything she could have been if she'd gotten more time. Sloan couldn't speak, couldn't sign, could only sit there as tears poured down her face. Ash pulled her into a gentle hug. You gave me something back yesterday, something I thought I'd lost forever. You gave me hope, gave me a reason to believe that courage and kindness and impossible bravery still exist in this world. He pulled back, signed with fierce intensity. I can't bring Lily back, I know that. But maybe I can help you, protect you, give you the life she didn't get to live. Sloan signed against his chest. You already have. You already are. They sat together for a long time, father and daughter in everything but blood. Grief and hope and love mixed together under Arizona stars. A truck pulled up at the compound gates an hour later. Old Ford pickup, dents in rust, Marine Corps veteran plates. An older man climbed out. Gray hair, careful movements, eyes that had seen things most people couldn't imagine. Ash stood so fast he almost fell. His face changed, something raw cracking through the stoic mask. Chief, the old man smiled. Hey kid, heard you found someone worth protecting again. They crossed the distance and embraced, held each other for a long moment, two soldiers reconnecting across decades. When they separated, Ash's eyes were wet. He turned to Sloan, signing, This is Malcolm Fraser. He was my commanding officer, saved my life more times than I can count. Malcolm approached Sloan, moved slow, gave her time to read his lips. So you're the one everyone's talking about. The girl who ran 2 miles to save strangers. Sloan nodded, unsure how to respond to this weathered warrior who radiated authority and kindness in equal measure. I've known Ash for 40 years, Malcolm continued, served with him overseas, watched him come home broken, watched him lose his daughter, watched him survive when most men would have given up. He placed a hand on her shoulder. I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you. Sloane's throat tightened. You gave him something back, something he lost when Lily died. Malcolm's voice cracked slightly. Thank you for that. Whatever else happens, thank you. More angels arrived as darkness fell. Sloan watched from the main building windows, counted headlights, lost track somewhere past 200. The compound was running out of space. Men were setting up tents, laying out sleeping bags, parking bikes in any available inch of ground. Mama Hawk found her staring out the window. Overwhelming, isn't it? Sloan nodded. They're not here because they have to be. They're here because they want to be. Because your courage reminded them why they wear those patches in the first place. Mama Hawk stood beside her. We're not always the good guys, sweetheart. Sometimes we're the ones who scare people, who make mistakes, who do things we regret. She gestured toward the sea of leather and chrome. But we also protect. We also serve. We also stand between the innocent and the evil when nobody else will. And you showed us that at our best, we're a force for good in this world. Sloan typed on her phone. I just ran to warn them, that's all. That's everything. Mama Hawk took the phone, typed back. Most people freeze when they see evil. You ran toward it. That's the difference between existing and living, between being safe and being brave. Dinner was chaos, good chaos. 300 angels packed into the compound's dining hall and courtyard. Food spread across a dozen tables. Stories being swapped. Laughter rising. Brotherhood on display. Sloan sat between Deirdre and Ash. Picked at her food. Watched the celebration happening around her. These men had driven hundreds of miles. Left jobs and families and responsibilities. All for her. It should have felt good. Should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like pressure, like weight, like responsibility she couldn't possibly carry. Ash noticed. His hands moved subtly. You okay? She signed back. Small movements under the table. What if I let them down tomorrow? What if something goes wrong and someone gets hurt because of me? Then we deal with it together. That's what family means. He paused. Lily asked me the same question before her surgery. What if I die, she said. I told her, what if you live? What if your courage saves you? Did it? She lived 2 more years. 2 years she wouldn't have had if she'd been too afraid to try to. His eyes held hers. Tomorrow you're going to walk into that plaza and face down killers who want you dead. You're going to be terrified. That's good. Fear means you're smart, but you're also going to do it anyway, because that's who you are. Sloan looked around the dining hall at 300 men who believed she was brave, who believed she was worth protecting, who had answered her call without question. She hoped they were right. Flint found her after dinner, gestured for her to follow. They walked to a quieter section of the compound, a small courtyard with benches and a fountain that no longer worked. Tomorrow's going to be hard, he said, signing as he spoke. Harder than yesterday. Yesterday you acted on instinct. Tomorrow you have to make choices. Have to stay calm while knowing you're a target. I know. Do you? Flint's eyes were serious. Because once you walk into that plaza, there's no backing out. No changing your mind. You're committed. And if the Vipers figure out it's a trap, if they change tactics, things could get very bad very fast. Sloan met his eyes. I understand. I need you to understand more than the danger. I need you to understand the plan, where to stand, when to move, how to signal if something feels wrong. He pulled out a small earpiece. You'll wear this. It's connected to Mitchell's team and to me. You can't respond, but you can hear. If we tell you to drop, you drop. If we tell you to run, you run. No hesitation, no questions. He pressed the earpiece into her hand. Can you do that? Sloan looked at the small device, at the technology that would connect her to forces trying to keep her alive, at the lifeline that might be the only thing standing between her and a bullet. Yes, she said aloud, I can do that. Flint studied her face, looking for doubt, for hesitation, for any sign that she might break under pressure. Whatever he saw must have satisfied him because he nodded once. Good. Get some sleep. We leave at dawn. Sleep was impossible. Sloan lay in the dark and stared at the ceiling. Listened to her mother's breathing in the next bed. Felt the vibration of 500 men moving through the compound outside. Preparing, planning, getting ready for war. Tomorrow she would stand in a public plaza surrounded by thousands of people. Tomorrow she would be bait for killers who wanted her dead. Tomorrow she might die. But tomorrow she might also save lives. Might help destroy an organization that treated human beings like cargo. Might give 12 rescued women justice and closure. Might prove that being different wasn't weakness. That being deaf wasn't disability. That being 14 and female and scared didn't mean being helpless. Sloan closed her eyes and thought about Lily, about Ash's daughter who'd fought cancer with courage and humor, who'd seen her deafness as power instead of limitation, who'd lived 2 extra years because she'd been brave enough to treat him. Tomorrow Sloan would try too. The compound came alive before sunrise. Sloan woke to vibrations, engines turning over, men moving with purpose, the organized chaos of warriors preparing for battle. Deirdre helped her dress. Black jeans, dark shirt, the tactical vest that Mitchell's team had fitted yesterday. It was heavy, uncomfortable, but it might save her life. Mama Hawk appeared with breakfast. Forced Sloan to eat even though her stomach was in knots. Stood there with arms crossed until every bite was gone. You need fuel, she said. What you're about to do requires strength, physical and mental. In the main courtyard, 500 angels were mounting up, leather gleaming, chrome catching first light, death's head patches everywhere. An army assembled for one purpose: protect the girl. Ash walked towards Sloan carrying a leather jacket, smaller than the ones the angels wore, fitted specifically for her. She could see the death's head patch on the back, see the colors, see the guardian daughter patch on the front. He stopped in front of her. His eyes were wet. His hands trembled slightly as he held out the jacket. This was Lily's, he said quietly, a voice breaking. She wore it until she got too sick. We've kept it ever since, waiting for the right person. Flint stood beside him, placed a hand on Ash's shoulder. We want you to have it. Sloane's hands shook as she took it. The leather was soft, worn, loved. She slipped her arms into the sleeves. It fit perfectly, like it had been made for her. Ash's tears fell freely now. He signed slowly. She would have loved you. She does love you wherever she is. Flint looked at the assembled angels. at 500 men ready to ride. You ready? Sloane looked at her mother, at Ash, at Mama Hawk, at the army gathered around her, at the jacket that carried a dead girl's courage. She spoke aloud, voice stronger now. I'm ready. Flint raised his fist. 500 engines roared to life. The sound must have been deafening. Sloane felt it in her chest, in her bones, in her soul. This was power. This was family. This was 500 Hell's Angels answering one deaf girl's courage. Flint's fist dropped. The convoy began to move. And Sloane Callahan, who had spent 14 years invisible, rode toward Phoenix surrounded by thunder she couldn't hear, but would never forget. Part 3, the convoy rolled through the desert like a river of steel and thunder. 500 motorcycles moving in formation, chrome catching the morning sun, leather and death's head patches everywhere. The ground trembled beneath their weight. Sloane sat in the center of it all. Deirdre drove the Corolla with white-knuckled hands. Flint led from the front. Ash rode directly behind them. Talon scouted ahead. The rest formed a protective shell that stretched for half a mile in both directions. Through the car window, Sloane watched the desert pass, watched the sun climb, watched the world transform into something beautiful and terrifying. She wore Lily's jacket, felt its weight on her shoulders like a blessing and a burden combined. The tactical vest pressed against her chest with every breath. The earpiece sat tucked in her ear, silent for now. Her phone buzzed with messages from angels she'd never met, all saying the same thing in different ways. We're with you. You're not alone. Nothing's getting through us. Deirdre glanced over, signed one-handed while keeping the other on the wheel. How are you feeling, baby? Sloane didn't know how to answer that. She was terrified and calm at the same time, ready and completely unprepared, brave and utterly certain she was about to die. I don't know, she signed back. Ask me tonight, if there was a tonight. The Phoenix Memorial Plaza sprawled across 3 city blocks in the heart of downtown. Sloane had been here once before, a school field trip years ago. It had seemed so much smaller then, just another public space with fountains and benches and pigeons. Now it looked like a battlefield waiting to happen. The convoy arrived 2 hours before the memorial service officially started. Time for FBI agents to get into position. Time for angels to blend into the crowd. Time for Sloane to remember how to breathe. Mitchell met them at a staging area 3 blocks away. A vacant office building that FBI had commandeered for the operation. Inside screens showed every angle of the plaza. Agents spoke into headsets, checked weapons, reviewed positions one more time. Sloane stood in the center of organized chaos and tried not to think about all the ways this could go wrong. Mitchell approached, signed as he spoke. Your vest is secure, she nodded, earpiece working. Another nod. Good. He pulled out a tablet, showed her a map of the plaza. You'll enter from the west side, walk to the center where the main memorial is. There's a fountain, stand near it, be visible. That's all you have to do. He traced routes with his finger. We have agents here, and here, snipers on these rooftops, angels positioned throughout the crowd. The moment anyone makes a move towards you, we close in. Sloane studied the map, spotted something, pointed to a building on the east side. What about there? That parking structure has direct sight line to the fountain. Mitchell checked his notes. It's closed for renovations. Is it? Sloane pulled out her phone, typed quickly. I drove past there last week. They finished the work. There were cars parked on the 3rd level. Mitchell's face changed. He turned to an agent. Verify that, now. 30 seconds later, the agent looked up. She's right. Structure reopened Monday. It's not in our intel. Mitchell swore under his breath, adjusted the map. Put a team in that structure. Sweep every level. He looked at Sloane with something between respect and concern. Good eye. That could have been a problem. Flint appeared at Sloane's side. She sees things we miss. Depth perception. Different way of processing visual information. Then maybe she should be consulting on our operations instead of serving as bait. Mitchell almost smiled. Almost. You ready, Miss Callahan? Sloane looked around the command center. At screens showing the plaza filling with people. At agents checking weapons. At angels removing their patches and leather transforming into civilians. At Deirdre standing in the corner with Mama Hawk, both women trying not to fall apart. No, she said aloud, but I'm doing it anyway. The walk to the plaza felt like walking to an execution. Sloan moved through crowds that were already gathering. Families, survivors, media with cameras, community members who'd come to support the rescued women. Nobody recognized her. She was just another teenager in the crowd. Invisible again. Except this time invisibility was armor instead of weakness. Ash walked 10 feet behind her, dressed in jeans and a button-down shirt instead of leather, looking like someone's grandfather instead of a warrior. But his eyes never stopped moving, never stopped watching, protecting. Talon was somewhere to her left, Crusher to her right, 40 other angels scattered through the crowd. Invisible in plain sight. Sloan reached the fountain at the center of the plaza, positioned herself where Mitchell had indicated, visible from three sides, exposed, vulnerable, perfect bait. The earpiece crackled to life. Mitchell's voice. "We see you, all teams in position. Stay calm, you're doing great." Sloan clasped her hands together to stop them shaking. Looked around the plaza, at families gathering, at a mother with 3 young children, at survivors being interviewed by news crews, at ordinary people living ordinary lives with no idea that killers might be hunting in their midst. A woman approached, mid-30s, dark hair, red eyes from crying. She spoke directly to Sloan, moved her lips carefully. "Are you Sloan, the girl from the news?" Sloan's heart jumped. She nodded slowly. The woman's face crumpled. She reached out, grabbed Sloan's hands. "My sister. She was one of the 12, one of the women they rescued." Tears streamed down her face. "If Iron Brotherhood hadn't stopped that convoy, if someone hadn't warned them, my sister would be dead." She pulled Sloan into a fierce hug, sobbed against her shoulder. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." More people came. Survivors who'd heard the story, family members who'd got it in their loved ones back. They surrounded Sloan, touched her, thanked her, made her the center of attention in a way that made Mitchell's voice tense in her ear. "Too many people. Can't see all the angles." Sloan tried to create some space. But Sloan couldn't. The crowd pressed closer, a man with tears streaming down his face, a grandmother who'd lost her granddaughter to trafficking 2 years ago, a teenage boy who signed "thank you" with clumsy hands. Then Sloan saw him. Kieran Murphy stood at the edge of the crowd, her bully, the boy who'd made her life hell for 3 years. He looked smaller somehow, scared, like he wanted to run but couldn't make his feet move. Their eyes met. Sloan could have looked away, could have pretended not to see him, could have let the moment pass and never thought about him again. But something made her push him through the crowd, made her walk toward him while Ash's presence shifted behind her, alert and ready. Kieran flinched when she stopped in front of him. His mouth moved. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Sloan pulled out her phone, typed deliberately, turned it so he could read. "You made my life miserable for 3 years. You made me feel worthless. You made me want to disappear." Kieran's face twisted. "I know. I was awful. I don't have an excuse. I was scared and angry, and I took it out on you because you were different, and I'm so sorry." Sloan kept typing. "But I'm not going to hate you. Hate is too heavy. I forgive you, Kieran, not because you deserve it, because I deserve to be free." She held the phone steady, let him read it twice, watched something break inside him, watched tears spill down his cheeks, watched him drop to his knees in the middle of the plaza while people stared. "I don't deserve that," he whispered. "I don't deserve your forgiveness." "None of us deserve grace," Sloan typed. "We just give it anyway." She turned and walked back toward the fountain, left Kieran kneeling there, left him to figure out what to do with forgiveness he hadn't earned. Behind her, she heard people asking if he was okay, heard Mama Hawk's voice saying something sharp and protective. But Sloan kept walking, because forgiveness wasn't about him. It was about her, about choosing not to carry that weight anymore. Mitchell's voice crackled again. "That was risky, but beautiful. You okay?" Sloan touched the earpiece, her signal that she heard him. The memorial service began at noon. A stage had been set up on the plaza's north side. Speakers took turns telling stories. Survivors shared their experiences. FBI representatives talked about the ongoing fight against trafficking. Community leaders called for change. Sloan stood by the fountain and watched. Listened through the interpreter Mitchell had positioned nearby. Felt the weight of hundreds of stories about women who'd been stolen, transported, sold. Women who'd survived because someone decided their lives mattered. A little girl approached, maybe 6 years old, holding her mother's hand. The mother spoke to Sloan. "My daughter wanted to meet you. She saw you on the news." The girl stared up at Sloan with wide eyes. Then she moved her hands. Clumsy sign language. Clearly just learned. "Thank you for saving people." Sloan's eyes burned. She knelt down to the girl's level, signed back slowly. "You're learning sign language." The girl nodded enthusiastically. Her mother translated. She insisted. Said if you can be brave without hearing, she wants to learn how to talk to people who are deaf. Sloan looked at this child who'd decided that difference deserved understanding instead of fear. Who'd taken the time to learn. Who saw deafness not as disability, but as something worth bridging. She pulled the girl into a gentle hug. Felt small arms wrap around her neck. Felt hope bloom in her chest despite everything. This was why. This moment right here. This was why she'd said yes to Mitchell's plan. Because maybe her courage could teach this little girl that bravery came in all forms. That being different was power. That one person's choice to act could change everything. Mitchell's voice cut through. Urgent. "Sloan, we have movement. North side, 2 suspects matching Viper descriptions. Stay calm. Don't move." Sloan's heart slammed against her ribs. The little girl pulled back. Sloan smiled at her, ruffled her hair, stood slowly, tried to look casual while terror crawled up her spine. "Keep eyes on the targets," Mitchell continued. "They're not making a move yet. Just watching. Sloan, stay visible. This is working." The crowd had grown, thousands of people now. News cameras everywhere. The stage speakers continued their testimonials. A survivor talked about being locked in a container for 6 days, about the angels who'd rescued her, about the second chance she'd been given. Sloan scanned the crowd, looking for threats, looking for anything out of place. Her deaf perception kicked in. Details hearing people might miss. A man whose body language didn't match the occasion. Tense, coiled, wrong. Another man near the east entrance, scanning faces, looking for someone, looking for her. She touched her earpiece. The signal for "I see something." Mitchell responded immediately. "What do you see?" Sloan pulled out her phone, typed while pretending to check messages. 2 more, east entrance. Guy in blue jacket and one in baseball cap. They're hunting. "We see them. Good eye. Don't engage. We've got this." But Sloan's attention caught on something else. Movement near the south side. A cluster of children had gathered around a balloon vendor, laughing, playing, completely oblivious to the danger, and pushing through the crowd toward them. A young man, ordinary looking, nothing special, except his hand was inside his jacket, except his eyes were locked on Sloan, except everything about his body language screamed wrong, wrong, wrong. The shooter. But then his eyes shifted, not towards Sloan anymore, toward the children. His trajectory changed. He was heading for the kids, not her. Time slowed down. Sloan saw it happening like watching a movie, the man's hand emerging from his jacket, the gun appearing, black metal catching sunlight, his arm raising, aim shifting, not toward Sloan, toward the children. Maybe he couldn't get a clean shot at her. Maybe this was plan B, kill innocence, draw her out, force her to move. It didn't matter why, only that 3 seconds from now children were going to die. Sloan moved, not away, toward. She ran faster than she'd ever moved, faster than yesterday's 2-mile sprint, faster than thought. She hit the group of children like a linebacker, wrapped her arms around as many as she could, drove them toward the ground behind a concrete planter. The gun fired. Sloan felt the impact like a truck hitting her chest, felt herself flying backward, felt the world tilt sideways, felt concrete rushing up to meet her skull. Then chaos, screaming, running, bodies everywhere, parents grabbing children, people diving for cover. The plaza transformed from peaceful memorial to war zone in 3 seconds. Sloan lay on the ground, stared at the sky, tried to breathe. Her chest felt like someone had hit it with a sledgehammer. The vest had stopped the bullet. She knew that intellectually, but her body wasn't getting the message. Ash's face appeared above her. His mouth moved frantically, his hands pressed against her chest, checking for blood, for wounds, for life. Vest, Sloan managed to say. Bullet hit vest. Relief flooded his face. He signed quickly. Stay down, don't move. But Sloan turned her head, saw the children she'd pushed down, saw them crying but alive, saw parents rushing in to scoop them up, saw that every single one of them was breathing. She'd done it, taken the bullet, saved them. Around the plaza, FBI agents swarmed. Ash had already tackled the shooter. 3 other angels piled on top. The man was screaming, fighting, going nowhere. Ambulance arrived with restraints, hauled him away, but Mitchell's voice was in Sloan's ear, triumphant. We've got them, all of them. 6 vehicles just attempted to flee. We intercepted every we want, but the entire Viper clan leadership is in custody. It's over, Sloan. It's actually over. Over. Sloan lay on the concrete and let the words sink in. Over. The threat, the fear, the hunting, over. Deirdre appeared, shoved through the crowd like a force of nature, dropped to her knees beside Sloan. Her hands ran over her daughter's body, checking, verifying, making sure. I'm okay, Mom, Sloan signed in. The vest stopped it. I'm just bruised. Just bruised, Deirdre repeated. Her voice broke. You took a bullet, Sloan. You put yourself between a gun and children you don't even know. I know, Sloan said. I'm sorry. Don't. Deirdre pulled her daughter up into a sitting position, held her face between her hands. Don't you dare apologize for being the bravest person I've ever known. Sloan started to laugh, then cry. Then both at once, the adrenaline was crashing. Her body was figuring out that it had almost died. Her brain was catching up to what she'd just done. Mama Hawk appeared with paramedics. They checked Sloan over, confirmed the vest had done its job. The bullet hadn't penetrated. She had a massive bruise forming across her sternum, possible cracked rib. But she was alive. The crowd had realized what happened, realized this teenage girl had just saved their children, had taken a bullet meant for innocence. They surrounded her slowly, carefully, like approaching something sacred. Then someone started clapping. Sloan felt it through vibrations, felt it build, felt it spread like wildfire through the plaza. Thousands of people, all of them beating their hands together for the deaf girl who'd saved lives she'd never even met. News cameras captured it all. The moment Sloan was helped to her feet, the vest visible where her jacket had fallen open. The children she'd saved pressed against their parents' legs, the angels forming a protective ring, the FBI agents leading handcuffed Viper clan members away. Mitchell approached. His face was tight with emotion he was trying to suppress. Miss Callahan, you just helped take down the largest trafficking operation in the Southwest. 12 members of Viper clan leadership are in custody, including Victoria Blackwell. He paused. Let that sink in. Victoria's been running this organization for 15 years. We've been hunting her for 8. She was at the plaza today, watching from a building across the street. When the shooting started, she tried to flee. We were waiting. Sloan's eyes widened. The mysterious female leader, the one pulling the strings, caught. Mitchell continued. You did that. A 14-year-old girl who ran 2 miles to warn strangers, who stood in the middle of a plaza as bait, who threw herself in front of a bullet to save children. He shook his head. I don't have words. Sloan pulled out her phone, typed with shaking hands. I was just trying to help. You did more than help. You changed everything. Mitchell glanced at the crowd, at the cameras, at the angels surrounding Sloan like an honor guard. You're going to be on every news station in America tonight. Your story is going to inspire millions. Are you ready for that? No, Sloan said honestly, but I wasn't ready for any of this. I'm still doing it. A reporter pushed through, microphone extended, camera rolling. She spoke directly to Sloan, clear enunciation. Can you tell us what happened? Why did you run toward the shooter? Sloan looked at the camera, at the lens that would carry her words to millions, at the chance to say something that mattered. She spoke aloud. Her voice was rough, unpracticed, but stronger than it had ever been. There were children. I saw the gun. I moved. That's all. She paused. I'm deaf. I've spent my whole life being told what I can't do, what I can't hear, what I can't accomplish. But yesterday I ran 2 miles to save 40 people. Today I took a bullet to save children. She touched her ear. Being deaf doesn't make me less. It makes me different. And different gave me the power to see threats before they happened, to read lips from across an alley, to stay calm when the world around me was chaos because I'm used to silence. Sloan looked directly at the camera. There are people watching this who feel invisible, who think being different makes them weak. I want you to know you're wrong. Your difference is your power. Use it. The reporter stared at her, speechless. The camera kept rolling. And Sloan turned away, done with being interviewed, done with being the center of attention. She just wanted to go home. Except home didn't exist anymore. Home was the Angels now. Home was compound walls and leather jackets and 500 warriors who'd answered her call. As the FBI cleaned up the scene, Mitchell pulled Flint aside. Sloan watched them talk. Saw Mitchell's expression darken. Saw Flint nod grimly. When they finished, Flint came to Sloan, signed as he spoke. They arrested Deputy Garrett 2 hours ago, found evidence he'd been on Viper Clan payroll for 18 months. He's the one who tipped them off about your identity, gave them photos, told them where you lived. Sloan's stomach dropped. The deputy who'd questioned her, who'd tried to discredit her. He'd been working for them all along. He's going to prison, Flint continued, for a very long time. Conspiracy, obstruction of justice, accessory to attempted murder. His eyes were hard. Justice served. The ride back to the compound was different. Slower, no urgency, no fear. Just 500 motorcycles rolling through the Arizona evening in formation. Victory lap instead of battle march. Sloan rode in the Corolla with her chest aching and her head spinning. Deirdre drove with one hand, the other stayed on Sloan's knee. Constant contact, making sure her daughter was real and alive and whole. They arrived at the compound as the sun touched the horizon, painting everything gold and red. 500 bikes parked in perfect rows. 500 angels standing in formation, waiting for her. Flint stood at the center. As Sloan climbed out of the car, he raised his fist. 500 voices roared. A sound Sloan couldn't hear but felt in every cell of her body. Triumph, pride, brotherhood. He waited until the noise died. Then he spoke, signing as he went, making sure Sloan could follow every word. Brothers, 3 days ago, a girl we'd never met ran 2 miles through hell to save 40 lives. Today, that same girl took a bullet meant for children, put herself between a gun and innocence without hesitation. He paused, let the weight of it sink in. That's not just courage. That's honor. That's sacrifice. That's everything we claim to stand for made real by a 14-year-old deaf girl. Flint walked towards Sloan, pulled something from his vest. A patch, different from the others. Silver wings spread wide. 3 words stitched beneath in deep red thread. Guardian daughter. This patch has never been given before. We created it for you because you're not just someone we protect. Your family. Our daughter. All 500 of us. He held out the patch. From this moment until your last breath, you are under the protection of every angel in the world. Hurt you and you hurt all of us. Sloan's hands shook as she accepted the patch. It was heavier than she expected. Solid, real. She looked at Flint, at Ash standing beside him, at Mama Hawk with tears streaming down her face, at 500 men who'd become her family. She spoke aloud so everyone could hear. I don't deserve this. You deserve more, Flint said. But it's a start. The compound erupted. 500 voices raised in celebration. 500 fists pumping the air. Sloan stood at the center wearing Lily's jacket and holding the guardian daughter patch and crying so hard she couldn't breathe. Ash pulled her into a crushing embrace. His chest shook with sobs he had been holding back for years. Thank you, he signed when he finally released her. Thank you for giving me a reason to keep going. Thank you for being the daughter I lost. Thank you for being the father I needed, Sloan signed back. They held each other while the sun set and the compound celebrated and the world shifted into something new. The ceremony continued long into the night, stories shared, toasts raised, brothers who'd ridden from 1,000 miles away finally meeting the girl whose courage had summoned them. Each one approached Sloan, Each one thanked her. Each one looked at her like she'd given them something priceless. Purpose, meaning, proof that what they did mattered. Around midnight, the Sloanes slipped away from the celebration, found a quiet spot near the compound wall, pressed her back against sun-warmed concrete, and watched the stars emerge. Flint found her there, sat down without speaking. Just presence. After a while, he signed. "You okay?" "I don't know what I am," Sloan admitted. "3 days ago, I was invisible. Now I'm on national news. I have 500 big brothers. I've been shot. I don't know how to process any of this." "You don't have to process it tonight. You just have to survive it. The rest comes later." "What happens now?" Flint considered. "Now you grow up, go to school, make friends, have normal teenage problems, be bored for once." "That sounds weird." "Boring is good. Boring means safe. Boring means you get to have a future." He looked at her. "After everything you've been through, you've earned boring." Sloan leaned against his shoulder. "Will you stay?" "In my life, I mean. Wild horses couldn't drag me away. You're stuck with us now, all of us." They sat together in comfortable silence. Father figure and daughter. Warrior and guardian. Family made through choice instead of blood. 6 months passed like a dream. The compound became home. Not just for Sloan and Deirdre, but for both of them in different ways. Deirdre enrolled in nursing school. Angels funded it completely, paid off her medical debt, gave her a real salary as the compound's medical officer. For the first time in 14 years, she came home for dinner every night, was present, was there. Sloan went back to school, but everything was different. Kids who'd ignored her for years suddenly wanted to be her friend. Teachers actually learned sign language. The administration created a deaf awareness program. She was no longer invisible, could never be invisible again. Kieran showed up at the compound one Saturday morning, asked to talk to Sloan. She met him at the gate with Ash standing 10 feet behind, always watching, always protecting. "I've been volunteering," Kieran said. His hands moved in clumsy sign language, clearly practiced. "At the deaf school across town, teaching self-defense to kids who get bullied." He paused. "I'm trying to be better, trying to earn what you gave me." Sloan studied him, saw genuine change, saw someone trying. "Keep trying," she signed. "That's all any of us can do." A little boy named Finian started emailing her, 8 years old, deaf since birth. He'd seen her on the news, started a sign language club at his school. 50 kids joined. They called themselves the Silent Warriors. Sloan visited once a month, taught them signs, told them stories, showed them that being different was power, that courage came in all forms, that one person's choice to act could change everything. The Viper clan collapsed. Victoria Blackwell cut a deal with federal prosecutors, gave them everything, names, routes, operations across 3 states, in exchange for life in prison instead of death penalty. 57 arrests followed, 12 major trafficking operations shut down, hundreds of victims freed. Mitchell sent Sloan a letter, thanked her, told her that her courage had done more to destroy the trafficking network than 3 years of FBI investigation. Offered her a consulting position when she turned 18, teaching agents about deaf perception, about seeing threats others missed. But the biggest change was internal. Sloan looked in the mirror and saw someone different, someone brave, someone who mattered, someone who'd proven that being deaf wasn't disability. It was just a different way of experiencing the world, a different kind of power. The 1-year anniversary of her run arrived on a Thursday. The Angels threw a celebration at Devil's Crossroad Bar, the same bar where she'd collapsed bleeding and terrified, the same bar where 40 men had stared at her like she was a miracle. Now she walked in wearing Lily's jacket with the guardian daughter patch stitched proudly on the front, walked into cheers and applause and 500 brothers who'd become her family. A banner hung on the wall, 1 year, 40 lives saved, but underneath in smaller letters, and hundreds more because she inspired us. Flint pulled Sloan onto the makeshift stage, handed her a microphone. She looked at the crowd, at Ash in the back with tears already streaming, at Deirdre standing with Mama Hawk, at Talon and Crusher and Malcolm Fraser, at faces she knew and faces she'd never met, all here for her. She spoke. Mama Hawk signed beside her for those who needed it. A year ago, I ran 2 miles thinking I'd save 40 men. What I didn't know was I was saving myself. Her voice was stronger now, confident. I spent 14 years invisible, believing I was less, believing my deafness was weakness. But you all taught me different. She paused, let her eyes sweep the room. You taught me that courage isn't about what you can hear. It's about what you choose to see. And when you see someone in danger, you don't look away. You run toward them, even if you're scared, even if you're alone, even if everyone says you can't, because being different isn't disability. She touched her ear. It's superpower, and every single person in this room is proof. Sloane's voice dropped, intimate now. We're family not because we're the same, but because when it mattered most, we showed up. We ran toward danger. We protected the weak. We proved that courage and kindness and impossible bravery still exist in this world. The room exploded in applause. Sloane felt it through vibrations, felt it in her bones, felt it in her soul. She stepped down from the stage, was immediately surrounded by hugs and handshakes and brothers who'd traveled hundreds of miles to celebrate this moment, to celebrate her. Ash found her in the chaos, pulled her aside. His hands moved slowly, deliberately. Lily would have loved you. She does love you wherever she is. You gave me back something I thought I'd lost forever. Purpose, family, hope. Sloane signed back. You gave me the same thing. They held each other. Father and daughter. Grief transformed into love. Loss transformed into family. Later that night, Sloane stood outside the bar, watched the desert stars emerge, felt the vibration of 500 engines idling, heard Deirdre's laughter from inside mixed with Mama Hawk's sharp comments, felt Ash's presence a few feet away, always watching, always protecting. A car pulled up. Malcolm Fraser climbed out, walked toward her with careful steps. Got something for you. He handed her a letter, yellowed paper, handwriting that shook with age or emotion or both. It's from me, he explained, to you, for when you need reminding. Sloane opened it carefully, read words that blurred through tears. Dear Sloane, well, by the time you read this, you'll have proven everything I'm about to say. But sometimes we forget our own strength. So here's your reminder. You are brave. You are powerful. You are exactly who you're supposed to be. Your deafness isn't limitation. It's vision. It's clarity. It's the reason you saw what others missed. The reason you moved when others froze. The reason 40 men lived and hundreds more were saved. Never forget that. Never let anyone make you feel less than. You are warrior. You are guardian. You are proof that courage has no sound. With respect and love, Malcolm Fraser. P.S. Ash would want you to know that Lily is proud. So am I. Sloane folded the letter carefully, tucked it into Lily's jacket pocket. Thank you. Thank you, Malcolm corrected. You gave an old soldier faith that the next generation knows what honor means. That's worth more than gold. He walked back to his truck, drove away into the desert night, left Sloane standing under stars with her family inside and her future stretching out like an open road. 1 year ago, she'd been invisible, a ghost in her own life, unheard, unseen, unnecessary. Now she wore a dead girl's jacket that had become her armor, carried a guardian daughter patch that meant family, had 500 brothers who'd ride through hell for her, had a mother who was finally present, had purpose and meaning and proof that her life mattered. Deirdre appeared at the doorway, signed, You coming back in? Sloane looked at the bar, at the celebration continuing inside, at the family she'd found through courage and blood and impossible choices, at the life she'd built from ashes. Yeah, she signed, I'm coming. She walked toward the light, toward the warmth, toward home, and the desert wind carried the sound of 500 engines and 500 voices and 500 hearts beating as one. For Sloane Callahan, the silent guardian, the girl who proved that courage doesn't need a voice. It just needs a heart brave enough to act. The story was over, but the life she'd earned was just beginning. And somewhere in the vast Arizona sky, a star burned a little brighter. Lily watching over her new sister, Malcolm watching over his chosen daughter, 40 men watching over the girl who saved them, Hundreds of trafficking victims watching over the teenager who'd helped set them free. Sloan Callahan walked through the door. Let it close behind her. Let the celebration surround her. Let family hold her close. She was 14 years old. She was deaf. She was a warrior. And she was finally beautifully and possibly home.